Okay, so my last video was concerning the bullcrap of Tim Walz's stolen valor and the fact that people are lying about what was said about him in the Iraq War, or in the case of Vance, that he basically ditched his unit, as if retirement was never something you could do. He was a freaking Marine. He knows retirement is a thing. But anyway, today's video is going to be on, is Kamala Harris's nomination legal? And the short answer is yes. Yes, it is legal. And why? Okay. First off, Joe Biden was never officially nominated as the Democratic Party's candidate. Even though he's the incumbent, so it's assumed, he was never technically the candidate. He was just the presumptive candidate because the convention hadn't happened yet. So, there's that. No disputing, he was not the official candidate at the time he dropped out. Now, second point is, and this was another thing that the troll kept insisting on doing in the comments, is bringing up, well, we didn't vote for her. Which, I'm sorry, if you're screaming about stolen valor, you weren't going to vote for the Democrats anyway. So, now, this troll brought up the 12th Amendment. And one of my legit commenters also mentioned nobody voted for her. But this person brought up the 12th Amendment, which she oddly said the 12th article. But anyway, so the 12th Amendment says two things. Number one, it talks about how the president and the vice presidential candidate can't come from the same state. And I did a video earlier about Gavin Newsom, because despite that, when people were assuming that Kamala Harris was going to be the nominee, they were saying, who's she going to pick for VP? Gavin Newsom. And it's a constitutional hurdle. No, it's a constitutional wall. You can't come from the same state. That's why the joke was that Trump was going to dangle vice president in front of Marco Rubio to get him out of Florida. It just can't be done. It's not a hurdle, it's a wall. So that was the first part of the 12th Amendment. Well, the second part maybe. And this first part, which this person got confused, and it is confusing. The Electoral College is very confusing. But it says that a slate of electors is going to nominate the president and the vice president. Now, this 12th Amendment actually concerns federal elections, because that is how our system of government works. We have not a popular vote, but an electoral college. So, you're wrong on two fronts. Number one, that concerns the general election. And number two, even if it concerned the Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, as he dropped out, endorsed Kamala, and like I said, not an official candidate yet, just a potential one. He endorsed Kamala, and then his slate of electors that he already won, which gave him the nomination, can decide to back Kamala. I mean, it's that way whether Biden dropped out, whether he dropped dead. Still, then the slate of electors get to decide who they're going to back. And nobody decided to challenge her for the nomination. So it was pretty much a foregone conclusion she was going to be the nominee, and she won enough electors to do just that. So it's not unconstitutional. When the 12th Amendment talks about electors, they're talking about electors that are chosen by the state to represent their vote, not by individual voters. Which makes me wonder, well, this person is a troll, so... But it makes me wonder if they're legit. If this isn't bad faith, if this is a really good faith confusion, which, again, Electoral College is confusing. When everyone is talking about the fake elector scheme from 2020, what does this person think they were talking about? Because did she think that this is some sort of voter fraud thing? I'm not sure where the disconnect is. Or did she never hear about the fake elector scheme? That's possible too. But in neither case is Kamala unconstitutional. She's not unconstitutional because Biden was never the official nominee, nor does she violate the 12th Amendment, because 12th Amendment only concerns the general election, not political parties. And if now each state gets a certain amount of electoral votes in the primaries, and then it changes for the general. The general is, I think, more in tune to the census data. You know, that the number of electoral votes you get depends on the population of your state. And I created a map based on polling averages to show you how this works. So this is the current Electoral College map. As you can see, Kamala Harris has a 8-point lead, 8 Electoral College votes lead. And so that's not much, because all Trump would have to get is either Oregon, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, because let's face it, Oregon's probably not going to happen. Pennsylvania. So there are a few states out there Virginia, that Trump could win to get him even, if not over, the mark. So that, and as you can see, that is for this year. If you look at 2020, okay. If you look at 2020, let me see if that changes things. Okay, I don't think it changes this map. Let me look at change from. Okay, so it does say here. Pennsylvania lost 1, New York lost 1. Okay. Montana gained 1, Oregon gained 1. Okay. Yeah, I see that now. So you can see that based on the census, I think it's based on census because, anyway, so the Electoral College can change depending on population. And so if a certain state has more of a population, they're going to have more Electoral College votes. Like California has 54 because it's a big-ass state. As rather than, say, Vermont or New Hampshire, who are teeny tiny states. And so, by population, that is, because North Dakota, South Dakota also have 3 electoral college votes. So, let me just... My arms are starting to hurt. So, as you can see, when the 12th Amendment talks about electoral votes, that's what they're referring to. They are not referring to voters. Now, of course, voters are the ones who decide the electoral college votes. I know that at least in the primaries, that depending on the state, it could be, especially on the Republican side, they have a winner-take-all system in many places. But on the Democratic side, it's proportional. And I don't know if it's the same for the general. I can't remember. But, so that makes it even more complicated. But it's the voter share. How many votes does each candidate get? So, under neither scenario is Kamala unconstitutional or illegal. And now, again, this is complicated, so I can understand the confusion. One person who commented it, I believe that they're just confused because it is confusing. The other person is an obvious troll. I'm glad for them because thankfully I got additional subscribers thanks to them, so there's that. Because I heard that that engagement helps the algorithm, so I engage trolls. However, for the person who commented who said no one voted for her, she's illegal. No, she's not. She didn't do anything illegal. It's very unusual. But before 1960, the political conventions were actually the place where nominees were decided. So it's not like this is something that's new, that's the concept of knowing who your electoral votes went to and who your nominee is going to be long before the convention. This is a fairly new phenomenon. Historically, you had to wait till the convention. And there's all sorts of wheeling and dealing, and sometimes things got heated. Sometimes fist fights broke out, trying to figure out who the nominee is going to be. So if you're complaining that you did not vote for Kamala Harris, you would have hated that system because you really wouldn't have had a vote. Because, again, the electors, even though they are supposed to be there on behalf of what the people voted for in that state, technically, they don't have to listen to the voters. They could easily say, oh yeah, the voters said this, but they're stupid, we're going to vote. So technically, they can do that. Obviously, since 1960, that hasn't been the case. The conventions are more of a formality now because we know far in advance who the nominee is going to be. And the only drama is whether that person has picked a vice presidential running mate and who is that person going to be. But otherwise, there's no drama. It's just pomp and circumstance, basically a coronation of the candidate that the people chose. But before 1960, no, things were a bit more lively. So if you're complaining that, I didn't vote for Kamala Harris, yeah, Be glad that we have the system that we have in place. Now, obviously, if it were up to me, we'd be going by popular vote, because it always struck me as bizarre, and I can only imagine how bizarre it was to the rest of the world that the last couple of Republican presidents won the Electoral College but lost the popular vote. And so it was very easy for an American to go overseas and say, yeah, I didn't vote for Trump. We did not vote for Trump. He lost the popular vote. Unfortunately, it's extremely confusing for us, and it's even more confusing for people who just go straight up popular vote. So, yeah, it's very, very confusing to follow the Electoral College and to understand how that works. So yeah, I hope that I was clear and that you have a better understanding of why Kamala Harris is not illegal, it's not unconstitutional, and, even if you still don't want to vote for Democrats for whatever reason, fine, but that is one attack that you cannot no longer use in good faith, because now you know the truth, that this is not illegal, this isn't stolen, just like Tim Walz doesn't have stolen valor. So at least you'll have to come up with another reason to dislike Kamala Harris, and not because, if you want to say that the Democrats strong-armed Joe Biden to leave office, I can see where you could say that. Joe Biden gets to decide on his own. And maybe he did finally see the polls and saw that he had no way of winning, and so stepped aside. Or maybe there was a little something to it. It was the polls and also the fact that everybody wanted him to leave. It could have been a combination. We don't know. According to Biden, it was completely his decision. It had nothing to do with all the Democrats around him saying leave. So believe what you want about that, but you cannot go after Kamala for that. So, well, you also can't go after her for recognizing Biden's mental decline and hiding it, because he met with people of Congress on both parties. So, again, no. That's also an attack you can't use. But I'm starting to go into something completely different. So with that, I will end the video here, and I will see you guys in the next one.